What's up, Mets fans? Welcome to a new episode of the Teens and Queens podcast. We got a pretty special episode today. We have Jared Robinson on the show, who's a minor league pitcher for the Mets that was recently acquired by the Mets. So, Jared, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm Jared Robinson. Grew up in West Covina, California. Growing up, I had two older brothers and one older sister. And, majority of my life was playing sports, mainly baseball, travel ball, going across the states, meeting different, guys. And it was a blast, man, growing up. And I wound up going to a private school called Bishop Vermont in La Puente, California. And out of there, I was getting looked at by multiple college teams, but I took my talents to Cerritos Junior College, and that's where I had, a good breakout time, my, 2 years that I was there, and wound up getting drafted in the 11th round by the Cleveland Indians. And so that's where my professional baseball career took off. And I spent about 6 years with the Cleveland Indians farm system. And then this year was my free agency year. And sure enough, I had the fortunate chance to sign in with the New York Mets. So here I am today.
All right. So my first question for you is, what sports did you play growing up, or was it just baseball? What did you play with your siblings? You said you had a few of them. Did they impact on what you played?
But yeah, growing up, I did like basically every sport. I did track and field, football, basketball. I swam a little bit. I played soccer. So there wasn't a sport that I never wanted to play or couldn't play. I, did my best in every single one of them.
Well, what made you choose baseball? Was it just your best sport? Or did you love it the most? Did your dad or parents have any influence on it, or what's the story behind that?
Honestly, my favorite sport was football growing up. I always had the talent for football, but baseball was kind of a second option for me. And I still remember when I was a young kid, I had took a fastball off my face, and it kind of traumatized me for a little bit to where I didn't want to play baseball, So as a young kid, you didn't realize what could it be in the near future. So it took me about a year or two to get back into baseball, and it was my freshman year of college. It was like I had a lot of people talking to me and saying, "Hey man, you can get drafted as a baseball player." And I'm like, "No shot, like get out of here, like no way, you're kidding me." And so I had no idea what it was like, during the June draft and how that all works until it came down to it, and I heard my name get called, and I was like, is this real? Is this happening right now? And it was just one of those crazy moments in life. You're just like, my life's going to change forever,
Awesome. All right, thank you.
I think, like, what's your hobbies, like, growing up or, like, even now? Like, what's your hobbies, like, especially, like, being in quarantine for a little bit? What would you say is, like, your go-to thing to do when you're not, on the diamond?
So one of my hobbies, I always loved magic. I always watched David Blaine, magicians, Chris Angels, and I got real fascinated with magic. So one of my hobbies growing up was getting into magic, sleight of hand, throwing cards, is this your card, doing those type of tricks. So I would say growing up, that was one of my big hobbies outside of, playing golf, playing Frisbee golf, just the normal things you did as a kid.
That's really cool. So you're coming from the Indians organization, who's known as like a team that's very well at developing pitchers. Mm-hmm. Is there like anything specific that they teach their pitchers or anything that's helped you out in your career that you think they're good at?
Yeah, I think with the Indians, it was a lot of communication on their part. It wasn't a time where you had a question and it couldn't be answered with them. For the Indians, they love to look at you more as family than, part of their property. And that's the one thing that I loved about them. And no matter what was going on in my career, if I said, hey, my fastball is not riding how I want it to be, or my slider's not breaking the way I want it to, break, they always sat me down and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. They, brought in guys just to help you out, and you felt like you were a priority with them. So that was one of the things I felt like what really set them apart.
Like you're saying too with Cleveland, there's a lot of iconic players now and in the past that have come from there. So going into the Cleveland organization, was there anybody like you met on the way that kind of like helped you out a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, there were multiple guys, man. I mean, there was one guy in particular, Josh Tomlin, when he was there, and he wasn't the guy who would big league you and, wouldn't talk to you and just walk by you in the hallway and didn't say anything to you. But he was a guy who was like, he's going to communicate with you, he's going to talk to you. And just picking his brain when I remember it was 2017, I believe. He was doing a rehab start in Mahoney Valley. And I just remember getting a chance to talk to him in the bullpen and just really pick his brain at what it takes to become a successful pitcher in the big leagues. And some of the things he just said, it was like, wow, like I've been overthinking everything, you know what I mean? And so that was one of the guys along the way. I sat down and said, man, I see why he's in the big leagues. It's not just because of his stuff or, the people that he knows, but it's just the way his mind works, his mindset. He's driven, he's ambitious, and he's just one of those guys you wish every team had a guy like Josh Tomlin.
Yeah, sounds like a great
Thank
guy. So I saw you start off as like a starter throughout your whole career, and then recently you had a few relief appearances out of colleges, and then slowly through the minor leagues you've become a reliever. What was the transition like from a starter to reliever, and what do you prefer more? Is there like one you prefer more or anything like that?
Yeah. So, going into pro ball, you have your starters, your relievers, your closers and all that kind of stuff. But going in, I was like, okay, I'm a starter. That's, what I've always done. And it wasn't like, I never knew what it felt like to be a reliever, coming in situations, runners on, trying to save the game. But as that transition happened, it became of, hey, you have great velocity, and you got to be real with yourself. Can you maintain that velocity for 5, 6, 7, 9 innings? And, the way it works is some guys have the talent to do so. Some guys are, hey, I can only give you that 97, 98, 100 miles per hour for 2 innings, 3 innings max. So they say, hey, let's get you to be yourself the best way you can. And that's as a reliever. It's not a bad thing, being a starter to a reliever. It's just, where can I succeed best at? And so that's how it was for me. It was like the best way for me to get to the big leagues was being a reliever, so that's how that whole process works. It's nothing bad, guys like to see it as, hey, he couldn't make it as a starter, he probably won't make it as, a reliever, but it's all about the mindset, man. You got to be able to adjust. You got to be able to be prepared no matter what. And so that's why as a reliever, you can't sit there and you can't go in there as a starter and think you have a lot of time to sit there and figure batters out and you can get away with a few pitches, but you got to be every single pitch, maximum effort, 100% going there, lights out. So that's how it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, so pitchers such as like Marcus Stroman preach that to stay consistent, you always have to adapt. Are there specific ways you adapt throughout the course of a season that help you adjust so you always have the advantage against hitters?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you always want to look at, I like to say a cheat sheet, what the hitters can hit, their percentages. Are they a pull hitter? Do they go opposite field a lot? And you look at that before games, prior, and, you sit there and you go like, okay, let me go down the list. Who would I be facing, in this situation? You just go down every single hitter and you start coming up with scenarios in your head. Okay, I'm going to start him off with a fastball, or I'm going to try to get him to chase after 2 strikes because that's what he does most. And it's all about adapting, not only with the hitter, but your surroundings as well. A lot of people don't understand. You got to know your field. You got to know, hey, is the wind blowing in? Is it blowing out? How's the grass? How's the turf? Is the balls, jumping off the bat tonight? So those are the things you got to adapt to. How's your body feeling? I'm a little sore today. I'm a little tight. What can I do to prepare for tonight's game? And it's a lot of things you got to look at before going into that inning that you're about to throw. So yeah, so being able to do that, that's really key.
I have something to add on that. How have those like scenarios you talk over, or like the live stuff, like the cheat sheets and stuff like that, progressed like from college? Like, how would you compare them to like the earlier in your career and like in the minor leagues as you progressed? Like, have they changed a lot, and how have you handled comprehending all of them?
Yeah. So in college, you get a list and it's based off of a couple of games, or, hey, this guy just got into college and we don't really have stats on him. And, you're not really going back into high school, because it's like over time you start maturing, you get better, you start doing things you never did when you were in high school. So it's kind of tough when you're in college, because anything could really happen. You can get a guy who says he's straight pull hitter, but every single time you face him, he has gone opposite field. And so you're like, okay, well, that didn't work. But compared to professional, you've seen the guys, you got data all the way back from college, and you just look at all the statistics and you're like, dang, ever since he was a freshman in college, all the way to a AA, AAA, that's, 10 years right there. And his percentage of pull is like 65, rather than, going opposite field is, 35. So it's like you kind of have a better sense of, okay, this is what he does, and he's done it for years. So I cannot go against that. And just, you do have that time where, oh, he'll get one of those duck fart hits, those bloopers, opposite field. And it's just like, that's baseball. It's out of your control on that one. So that's one of the big differences from college, and professional, and leading up to that.
All right, thank you.
So recently, Major League Baseball, or this year, this year, and I think minor leagues have been doing it for a little bit now. The new rule changes going on, like the 3 batter minimum. I'm not sure if that's in the minor leagues, but I know for sure that I'm pretty sure that the runner on second base and the extra innings is there. Like, what's your opinion on them? And yeah, just like your opinion on those rules that they implemented.
Yeah, my opinion is I don't necessarily like it, because now you're trying to control a team's decisions. And usually in the game, it's like, this is my best guy. This is our best stuff. We're going to give it to you. Now you're trying to sit there and say, hey, no. You're forcing guys to not go with their game plan, and you're changing the rules of the game. And it's like, we've been doing this for years and years and years. Why change it now? What's the big reason? Is it because, some teams are afraid that, hey, they might bring in this guy who's so dominant, we can't hit him and there's no chance? And it's like, no offense to the guy who's on the mound, and like, okay, he's in there for 1 inning. Maybe that's his job title. You know what I mean? That's what he does. That's why he's here, is for that specific reason, to face that specific batter. And how are you going to sit there and, basically say, no, you can't do that? And it's like, well, why? We're trying to win a game here. You know what I'm saying? This is for a championship, and you're telling us that we can't do what we want to do. You know what I mean? So for me, I don't necessarily agree with it. You're just changing too many rules of the game, and it's like, just let the boys play, man. Just let us go out there, have fun, do what we do, and try to win a ball game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I kind of added to that too. Like, you don't have to comment on this, but like the left-handed specialists that you've seen in the game for a really long time. Those are kind of going to the wayside now that you know, they have like the 3 batter minimum now. So it's kind of sad seeing those guys get like smaller roles or like having to get more like come into bigger situations because of that
Exactly.
rule
Yeah, yeah.
change.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, you got guys who have so many abilities, and it's like you're sitting there and you're taking it away. That's like saying, oh, and you only get two sliders minimum in an at bat, and it's like, wow, you're taking that away from me, and it seems so unfair to tell somebody, hey, you got to throw 3 guys minimum in order, and it's like, well, I'm a lefty specialist, or I'm a righty who throws 100, facing a righty, and it's like you're telling me that I I have to do this, like you're forcing me, and it's just like, come on, man, like we got 162 games. You got to just let us play how we play. Stop changing the rules. Over the years, they've changed little rules here and there, all that kind of stuff. The reason why fans love going to games, and it's starting to get a little bit out of control. So it's kind of like, at what point does someone say, hey, just let us play the game how it's supposed to be played? These rules were made up because it's fun. This is what we do, you know?
Now, do you agree with the DH in the National League? Because, like, as a Mets fan, I'm kind of conflicted because I like to see a little less offense because I like my occasional pitcher's duel. But in the Mets scenario right now, we have 2 quality first basemen like Pete Alonso and Dom Smith, who's going to be hard to find playing time for both, and both who obviously deserve it.
See, to me, honestly, if it was up to me, I would have it do whatever you want to do. You could have a DH hit, or you could have your pitcher hit. It doesn't necessarily matter. I don't know why it's like, okay, when you're playing a certain team, pitcher has to hit. Or, in different divisions, you got to have a DH. Why can't it just be, I get to pick and choose? Because what if I have a pitcher who's like Michael Lorenzen, who was a hitter his whole life, and it's like, hey, I can have him in my lineup, too, or I could have 2 of my, beast, home run hitters in my lineup. Why couldn't a team have that option of saying, I could have my pitcher or my hitter? Doesn't matter the division or anything. That's how I look at it, but to me, it is what it is. And I'm not too fond of the whole DH or, the pitcher has to hit situation, because you got guys who have hit their whole life and, they have an incredible arm, and now you're taking that bat out of their hand, and, you never know what could happen. Because when you see a pitcher hit sometimes, oh, man, it's exciting. Everybody just goes crazy,
Especially because like the Mets have like those guys like DeGrom, Syndergaard, who could just send the ball
Exactly.
over the seats like anytime. Like Syndergaard had like that 2-homer game in LA a few years ago, and also add into that too like Shohei Ohtani. When he's pitching, he can't hit because he's American League team. The only time he can hit is if he's like in a National League park. And even on top of that too, adding the DH now, you got Shohei Ohtani, who's like a great hitter and a great pitcher. He can't do both now that both of them are implemented on both sides.
Exactly. That's like telling, that's like, imagine if you were to tell Bo Jackson, hey, you can't play baseball or you can't play football. You got to pick one or the other. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
All right, moving on from the rules. What's your game day routine? Do you have like a specialty or anything like that?
I mean, my game day routine all depends on how my body is feeling, So if I'm feeling fresh, I didn't just get back from a 10-hour bus ride, I'm at home. We have a home series. I'll wake up. I'll get my lunch. That's always routine. You always want to get food in you before you get to the field, because a lot of times you got to work out right before, stretch time. And so what you really want to do what I like to do when I get to the field is I like to get in. I like to get my warm up, my stretching, because your body starts to break down over time. So you always want to keep your body nice and limber. So I like to do my stretching routines, have my shoulders stretched out, all that kind of stuff. I'll go in the gym. I used bands, all that kind of stuff, weighted balls beforehand. This is before we actually do a team stretch. And then a lot of times I like to put in some music, calm my mind. A lot of people don't understand you're away from family. You're, hundreds, thousand miles away. So sometimes you can feel a little bit homesick. So you like to put in some music, calm your mind, yourself, and just kind of mentally prepare for tonight's game. And so let's say if you have a workout, you do your workouts, all that stuff. Then you go out, you stretch, you take batting practice, you do all your conditioning, shag fly balls, and the real preparation comes after that. That's when, you're sitting there and you got 3-4 hours before the game time and your mind can just wander, you can just lose yourself. So what I like to do is I like to get me some of the spread, talk to the guys, just have fun. You know what I mean? You got to stay loose because in this day and age, if you're just sitting there, it's like a prison. You never just want to sit in your locker and not say anything to nobody or just being on your phone, but just communicate with the guys, laugh, talk about the games and just relax a little bit. And then once, you got that hour before game time, putting on your uniform, you want to make sure the cleats are nice, clean, shined up, hitters are putting on their tape. I'm sitting there, if I got a long sleeve, I'm like, okay, let me cut my long sleeve up, make sure I look nice and good because, you play just the way you look. You know what I mean? We all heard that before, and it's true. If you look good, you're going to play good. And so you got your headphones in, you're getting locked in, you're listening to Linkin Park, System of the Down, you just listen to rock, you're getting ready because you're about to go out there and dominate. And so you just want to get all that kind of stuff done. And then once you get out to the field, high-fiving guys, everybody's getting hyped up, you got kids and fans wanting to sign the baseball. And it's just one of those experiences where it's just like, man, like it's all leading up, to that national anthem, and you're on that line and you're still in preparation. You're sitting there, you're thinking, you got your eyes shut, you're saying a prayer, and it's go time after that.
Awesome.
I was gonna ask.
All right, you go.
Sorry, you go.
All
So, these days, a lot of guys go to, rehab if they get injured from the major leagues down to like different levels of the minors for rehab to play different games. Is there any it's almost like a two-part question. Is there any who's probably the coolest guy you faced while pitching in the minors?
Oh man, I would have to think. Let's see. I faced quite a bit of them, but I would probably have to say one of the biggest guys I would say I had fun facing would be BJ Upton back when he was playing. I remember I was in rookie ball, I believe, and I just remember I saw the lineup and I saw BJ Upton, and I'm just like, no, this can't be the BJ Upton I'm thinking of. And sure enough, it was. And, once he got into that batter's box and I just saw that stance, I kind of like my hands started shaking a little bit. I was like, oh shit. Like, because one of the things that goes through your mind that like nobody knows is like, damn, like I don't want to hit a big leaguer, while he's rehabbing. And so that's like one of your biggest fears is like, I'm gonna give up a home run or I'm gonna hit him, and it's like, damn, like I'm gonna be known as that guy who hit BJ Upton, while he was rehabbing. So I just remember, going through all the signs, and I just remember my catcher, one of the pitches he called was an inside fastball, and I was like, oh, like why? Come on, like let's stick to something else here. And I just remember I was like, you know what? Like, let's do it. You just got to do it. Full send it. And I remember I had busted him in, and his bat just was so quick. He just hit just like a screaming ground ball up the middle. And I was like, damn, like he got a base hit, but I mean, it's just cool facing him to think, I had a chance to face a big leaguer. You kind of have a story for the rest of your life,
Mm.
And then like almost like the second part of that question is almost like you look at like the Mets division or just like baseball in general. The Mets division NL East has a lot of stacked like teams. The Braves, all these different teams. Like you have like the Bryce Harpers, the Acuñas, the Freemans, the Sotos. Like who are you like most excited to like face in the
I would
majors?
say the most excited, I would probably say, is Juan Soto. That would be hands down, would have to be my absolute favorite just because the way he competes as a hitter. Like I just remember growing up, my dad always taught me, like, hey, don't be afraid to stare at that hitter or, like mumble some words, like intimidate them. And it's just like over time, people lose that type of sense of humor, so to speak. But Juan Soto, it's like he kept that, and it's like, man, like I would love to sit there and like have him stare at me like that, and I'm staring back at him, just two bulldogs competing. So I'm like, that would be a fun experience for me.
Like he does like the Soto shuffle and stuff like the iconic move. You
Exactly.
could have a little fun with that too. I think I was at Stroman's home debut last year. It was insane and it was packed and he like his at bats against Soto. I think he struck him out and Stroh just like stared right back at him. It was crazy. It was a good
Yep.
experience for sure.
I love it. I love it. That's just stuff fans love to see right there. Just that competition, just that two guys going at it, and it's just like, man, you gotta love it.
Mhm.
It sucks as Mets fans because we love watching these guys, but we have to root against them because they're always destroying us. Guys like Freddie Freeman and Juan Soto are always beating up on us, but you got to respect their game. They're elite baseball players.
Yeah, they're a hell of a baseball player, man. There's nothing you can take away from those guys, but they're at where they're at because who they are. So hats off to them.
All right, so my last question I have from my side is what was the best piece of advice you've ever received? Like, is there anyone who told you something that's really affected who you are and where you are today that you like always remember?
I think it was when I was in short season. One of our pitching coaches, he always had a story for every situation. And I would remember one thing he said to me, I took to heart. He said, slow the game down. Don't let it speed up on you. And I would just sit there and I would be like, slow the game down. Don't let it speed up on you. I'm what does that even mean? It's kind of one of those things, like it just has a deeper meaning to it, and just over time you can like see it, when you get into situations, bases loaded, one out, you're up by one run, you can let the game speed up on you very fast and things get out of hand. But it's up to you to just sit there, take a step back, and just say, I'm in control of the situation. Why am I the one who's panicking right now? You know what I mean? He should be the one who's panicking because I'm the one with the ball and I'm the one who's in control right now. So I just took that to heart, and every time I would come out the bullpen, I'll say, let me take a deep breath. Let me just slow it down a bit, because a lot of the times when you got runners on like that, the offensive team has a lot of momentum. They're all hyped up. They're moving fast. Their blood is pumping. But I have the chance to sit there and I could calm them down. I can cool them down real quick. That's what it's about, man. You got to sit there and not let the game speed up on you.
All right, I think we have time for maybe one, maybe two more questions. So we're gonna wrap it up.
All right, so there's a ton of excitement around the Mets right now. What were some of the factors that led you to come here?
I think one of the biggest factors was Marcus Stroman himself. Growing up, I idolized him, man. Just not being, over 5'11", not being, throwing 100 miles per hour. And it was just like you had so many reasons why you wouldn't be a professional. Height doesn't measure heart. I wasn't tall. I wasn't throwing absolute gas in high school. And it was just like, here's somebody who's breaking all those stereotypes. Wasn't tall, wasn't throwing 100, but he found a way to break through that. And that's what really led me to the Mets, was just being in the same presence as Marcus Stroman. I can tell it was the right fit. You know, someone I have based my pitching style after, you know, so many years, and just picking his brain and just the things that he does and why he's so successful and just his worth ethic, man. It is so crazy the things that he does in the off season, not only during the season, but the off season. It's just every day, 24/7, you know, 365 days a year. And it's like, that's a guy you look at and say, man, like, he's something special. And that's what I strive to be, man. I strive to be the greatest. And I think being a part of the New York Mets and knowing Marcus Stroman is there and a lot of the great other pitchers like Noah Syndergaard, Jacob deGrom, you know, Edwin Diaz, Dylan Betances. You got just a long list of just great athletes. And it's like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to be a part of that, you know? And so I told myself, this is going to be one hell of a ride, and I'm ready to do it.
That's awesome. All right.
So
for
you
my-
get to make your major league debut, but that could be coming very soon. Probably could be this season. What do you expect that feeling to be like when you finally get that call that you're a major leaguer?
Dude, that's the thing, is like, you get asked that question and it's like, honestly, you don't know until you get to that point. You know what I mean? Like, you've been through situations pitching in championship games, you know, playoff games, and it's like, it's high stakes, but you don't necessarily know that feeling of pitching in the big leagues until you get there. So we're gonna have to remember this question. So when that day comes, we can go back and I can sit there and I can tell you exactly how that moment felt.
Sure.
All right. We have one last question for you, Jared.
So,
No, you go. Your question.
oh yeah. So, like you were saying, Stro, is the big reason why you came to the Mets. Mets have a lot of great guys on the team, like Pete Alonso, Jacob deGrom. Besides Stro, who do you like getting like most excited to get to know?
I would say another guy I would probably be real excited to get to know would probably have to be Jacob deGrom. He's just one of those guys who dominates every year. And then you got to ask yourself, like, what is he doing? What, like, is there a secret to it? Does he have, you know, is there something we don't know about, a mystic river that he goes to in the off season? And it's just like, man, and it's just like, you see some guys who, you know, they dominate, you know, for a few years, and it's just like, oh, you know, you don't know what happened to them or things like that. But his consistency each and every year is just like, wow, like, we just try to be consistent at doing our normal day routines, but it seems like every single year he does it. Every single time he steps on that mound, it's consistency. So that's one guy I would love to get to know and just, you know, see what he does best.
Absolutely. So thank you, Jared, so much for joining us on the podcast today. We are more than blessed to have you on. We are really excited to see you in the Mets uniform, hopefully this season. We're really excited for that. And thank you guys for watching to the podcast. And thank you guys.
Good luck, Jared. Hope to see you in Queens this year.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank
keep
you,
in
Jared.
touch.